Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about releasing the need to be perceived as statics. And what I mean by that is that when we involve in life, sometimes we think we have to keep portraying that persona and role that we were doing previously, that we have to keep fitting that role to the people that are accustomed to that role for the benefit that we were getting from that role. And that changing, going out of our usual character in whatever time frame it is bad, is full of negativity. Like when people change or when situations change or when we have an update on a phone, we always get through resistance of getting into something new. There's a lot of comfort that comes with what is certain, what is regular, what is predictable. But when we change it, we go out of what is regular. There's a resistance that comes at first, sometimes from herself, but sometimes from other people, from other space and environment. So that comes from the fact that we're trying to be perceived as something that is predictable, as something that is constant, that people can be accustomed to and they know what they are getting when they are approaching us. It's like we have that perfect instruction of who we are, that we are pinning in our back, and we are gonna act like that for everybody to feel secure and safe and comfortable to interact with our ever-changing being. Because to be honest, the only thing that is constant is change. The only thing that will ever be constant is change. We are changing being, we are evolving being, and nothing stays the same. We are every day waking up to a different side of us. And the more we can acknowledge this part of us, the more we're gonna change. But with that change come a big shift in what's around us. A big shift is how we interact with people and how people interact with us. So we have to allow the change inside to reflect on the outside and be okay to not be perceived as nothing else than a human being, a soul, an energy traveling to this space. Because what else are we really doing here? We have all agreed to play that role, right? Because when we think of it for a second, when we just like take a moment and be like, okay, so right now I'm alive in a body that I have complete control of. When we think about that, like we have completely freedom and control about what our body can do in that moment. Like we can decide to roll on the floor, we can decide to jump, we can decide to go to bed, we can decide to stretch. Like we can decide for ourselves to do whatever feels right to us. That power itself, it's so incredible. Like we have so much power in being existing in that flesh right now, realizing that we are in a body. Like we are in a body and we can do whatever we want with it. We can shift and walk and experiences the way we want to. But at first, we all agreed to play that role, to play in that system that was in front of us because we didn't know nothing better. Like, we were innocent, curious beings that have been programmed to think a certain way, that have been conditioned to believe certain thing about ourselves. And now we're coming out in a new era where we have more awareness that we are powerful beings. Just the fact of existing, just the fact of talking or watching a video is so powerful when we think about the deepness that made that moment exist. That complicated physics and mathematics and biology that make it make sense right now to ourselves, and the awareness of that incredible magic that's happening in that very instant, and knowing that we have so much potential at every second to become something completely different. Why would we want to set up to one static way of being, one static way of being perceived, one static way of being appreciated in this world? There's a sense of comfort, I get it. This is a sense of comfort of feeling like we can anticipate how people are gonna react or how people are gonna receive our energy. There's a feeling of comfort on being in a place that feel like home, that feel like, oh, I've been here before, that feel like we knew this place for a long time. But before that space became home, it was a strange, it was an unknown thing before, right? And it's always that constant evolving and being comfortable in the uncomfortable and seeing the impossible become possible that we are as human beings evolving all the time. Something that seemed so impossible decades ago now is like so easy. Everybody take it for granted. We just go with it. We just accept the change. So as much we can accept this change outside of us and in higher hierarchy, we can accept it within us and celebrate whatever direction we want to go with our life. We owe nobody a version of ourselves that we are not wanting to play anymore. That we can decide to play whenever we want. Like we are not bound to a version of ourselves. And even the version we are now, we are not bound to it. And even the version we are tomorrow, we are not bound to. And that's the magic of living and not attaching any worth or any, to be completely detached of the fact to be perceived. Point blank, period. And I feel our generation is a lot about perception, about a lot about fitting a mold or fitting a vibe and being acknowledged by a specific type of people that we put on a pedestal and be like, they had to accept me for me to feel like I'm doing something good with my existence. When who they are and why are we giving them that role? There's no real reason for that. There's really no real reason for that. And the moment you like take a moment to just acknowledge the fact that we agreed to play that role and we can change persona as much as we want. Like we can every hour be a different person if we want to. If it feels good to us to be that, why not? We can be completely something day one and day two be something completely different. Like who's gonna judge us? At the end of the day, like if we feel good with what we're doing, what we're trying to fix, to be fixed in one way of being and being like secure in it and be like, at least I know what I'm getting with being that person, and I'm too scared to jump into something else because I can feel like it's a little bit outside of the comfort zone of the people that are acknowledging who I am today. If you don't make a surrounding full of people that will applaud to you as you grow, that will cheer you on as you grow, as you change, as you shift, as you become a completely stranger to themselves, to them, and they're still gonna want to see what else is there. If you're not surrounded by people that themselves always challenge themselves in their day-to-day life to become more and more in alignment with what makes sense to them in that moment, change your surrounding. That's all I have to say. Like life is too short to settle for one thing and to settle for one way of doing things and settle to one path or settle to be fixated on things. Like the power of detachment is the best power that we can acquire. To be able to go through life and not being attached to the result or the outcome or nothing, not even people. To be able to accept them for who they are and to accept ourselves for who we are, and to be able to just navigate life and not be too affected by whatever people react towards us or do with their own life. To be able to just navigate life and be like, that makes totally sense. Like we have the right to change our whole life if we want to, and to include the people that match that or not, and that we have the limited, infinite potential to just mold ourselves to whatever we want. We have been convinced that we weren't limited. We have been convinced that there was so much for little people and the rest had to struggle for the rest of their life. When it's not true. There's too much into that universe to be even calculated, to even have a number of it. Like there's no such things. Our point of view, our perception in our body is totally unique. Nobody else has the perception as accurate and synchronized as we are. So whenever we see, whenever we believe, whenever it makes us feel amazing about ourselves, is worth pursuing, is worth attempting to be it, right? Because what we have to lose, and most of the time, to be honest, there's nothing to lose as going exactly where we feel like we should go or being exactly who we think we should be. There's no negative point to this. I can fund them to try to see like what's the cons, but the cons only are rooted in insecurities and a wanting to be validated by things outside of us. That's the only cons, but it's not really a cons because we are not supposed to rely on other people validation to strive in this world. That we might think this is how it rolls. It might get confusing sometimes, but it is not how it rolls. They will always have people that naturally navigate towards you, and you won't have to pretend to be something you're not, to fight for it, to convince people, to manipulate people to get it. It's not necessary to be the best that we can and have everything that we want. Like there's so many laws and concept and mindset that we can nurture in our life to see those things materialize effortlessly and not needing to play whatever act we think we have to play to fit the mold, to fit the expectation. It's not necessary. Like we have to be okay to release the need to be perceived as something like fixed statics. You have to allow yourself to just flow whenever it feels like. And even if everybody will laugh at you, let's say example, you will say something and your group of friends or your family will laugh at you of thinking that you could ever be that. But just the fact that you imagine yourself being it is already the biggest part of the job done. Then that first thought that you had to nurture it until it just happened that you are that person and nobody can say anything to you because you made it. It is how life works. Where energy goes. Like it's how everything grows where energy goes. Everything flourishes where energy goes. And it might not look as anticipated because we have our own idea of how things flourish for ourselves. But there's many ways that things can flourish and they can look different way in all the spectrum of like positive experience and negative experience, both leading us exactly in whatever we're trying to accomplish in our flesh, in our stillness of just being alive, just having that awareness that we can just navigate life differently and make different choices for yourself. Like what's more beautiful than that, than knowing that we have no limitation of what we can do with our body. If we want to integrate limitation given by other people, we can, but we can remove all those limitations and just open our minds to all that's possible, all that is unknown, and nourish the feelings that makes us feel like that, free, wealthy, healthy, abundant. Just remind yourself that you are a soul living a human experience. Okay, you are bigger than whatever you feel you are in your body, and just being in your body right now, and all the things that are working in your favor every second to make sure that you still have one more second to experience. I mean, just saying that for me is enough to sit into myself and be grateful to just being breathing right now. And I think we have to implement more and more ways to remember that to ourselves. Even if we are stressed out, even if we're feeling a little bit down, even if things are shifting a lot in our life and it feels like we're going through a lot, like that is a sign that a lot of things is happening in your life. If you have a busy life, emotionally, spiritually, you have a lot of things coming for you. That's gonna just shift your whole universe. So just be patient that whenever you are manifesting it to your life, you ask for it. So just be sure that it's coming this way whenever the path looks like. The path doesn't have to look like anything else than yours. This is your story. This is your unique experience, which is worth to be seen, celebrated, and which is worth for you to experience the fullest. No one can tell you that you'd rather stay where you are small and suffer in the known and suffer in the comfort just because you don't have the courage to go for exactly what you want. Like courage, have courage. What else do we have to do in this life? Like experience with some intense concept, like courage, like involving, transcending, healing, experiencing, curiosity, creativity, and that has nothing to do with nothing. Like it just concept that we can involve ourselves more and more every day. Compassion, empathy, so many things that we can just sit and try to be more of that every day and just practice it. Because one thing about manifesting a life that we want is practicing having it, practicing being that person, practicing having the strength to handle whatever comes with whatever we're wishing for. And that starts with doing those little steps every day that make us evolve more and more into the direction that can receive all those things, and that make us evolve more and more into sitting more and more into ourselves and understanding how precious that flesh, that breath, that awareness is. That without all of that, we will not be still here, right? And if we are healthy and we have essentials in our life, we are richer than we think. So being grateful for all of this is key to sit into the known of who we are in that moment. And every moment is a new moment. Every moment is a new potential, a new space with a lot of potential to do infinite things. So how do you want to pass those infinite second feeling about yourself? Or what do you want to invest in those infinite second to quantum jump into a new version of yourself? So that's gonna be the end of the video. Hope you appreciate and see you for the next.